The Spartan is still my favorite build to play in Season 4, and if you're watching this for the first time, I recommend you check out the previous season's videos because this guide will build on top of them. For Season 4, we are building the Spartan around the Void Darkplate Heavy Armor artifact. This artifact will increase all resist by 20%, which will help maintain high physical and elemental resistance during combat. This 20% increase will synergize with our other sources of fortification and allow you to play much more aggressively in the front line. Since the meta has shifted to heavy armor, we swapped Bleeding Sweep for Perforate to enable applying more rends to higher resistance targets. The combo you want to master is leading with the Perforate into a Cyclone. The Perforate will apply a 10% weaken and rend for every hit you land. And if you use a dodge in between, you can proc a 26% empower and hit your aggressive maneuvers for a 20% cooldown reduction. Even with the increase to heavy armor dodging, the stamina return from invigorating crits and invigorating combo will maintain your stamina throughout the fight. To build on this combo, lead with the skewer, followed by a dodge, perforate, dodge, and finish with cyclone. If the skewer crits, you will get a 20% empower buff for 10 seconds, and you will still have 2 more opportunities to dodge and proc additional empower from the shirking empower and the 250 dexterity passive. Successfully landing these buffs will raise your empower stacks to 46% before you hit with cyclone. Building on the spear combos, when you're on your sword, start with a heavy attack to proc 30% empower, followed by a whirling blade. If you have Trenchant Rend on your Butcher Sword, the combination of the heavy attack and the whirling blade will apply a 31% rend to your target before following up with the Skewer Perforate Cyclone combo. The last technique to learn is how to animation cancel the Perforate. Use a dodge to cancel the Perforate after the second hit and maneuver behind your target to hit with Cyclone. The animation cancel can help you change up the tempo of the fight or save you from being caught by a CC. After playing the Spartan for the last 3 seasons, the attribute loadout I prefer is the Duelist setup with 108 strength, 303 dexterity, and 200 constitution. These attributes will give you 1,373 weapon damage on the sword and 1,624 weapon damage on the spear, 17,245 HP, and as mentioned before with the 250 dexterity passive, you will get 10% empower after dodging, and the 300 dexterity passive will CC cleanse when we weapon swap. Over 100 strength will increase our basic attack damage, and 200 constitution will give us 10% armor, which will stack nicely with the 20% from Void Darkplate and our fortified buffs. For the gear, we are running all heavy pieces with the Void Darkplate as our armor artifact. You should run 5 shirking heals and 4 shirking fortification. An alternative route is to go 4 enchanted ward, which will stack with the enchanted ward on the Void Darkplate and give you 20% reduction to light and heavy attacks. I recommend Leeching Cyclone on the armor and Feebling Skewer on the spear. With the remaining 3 perks, you have several options. Option 1 is to go 3 freedom, which will take you over the freedom cap to 53% because of the 20% freedom baked into heavy armor. Option 2 is to go 3 invigorated or 3 vigor to reduce the duration of debuffs or dot damage by 45%. Option 3 is to pick up more specialized perks like Critical Retribution for the helmet, Empowering Breaker on the gloves, and Fortifying Perforate as a final weapon perk. Critical Retribution will give you 10% crit chance whenever you take a critical hit and can provide you with additional stamina sustained from your spear passives. Empowering Breaker is great for stacking extra empower against tanks or Defiant Greatsword builds and can provide up to 21% additional empower at max stacks. Fortifying Perforate will increase your armor by 10 to 30% depending on how many hits you land. And the last option is to go 3 health to boost your HP by 7.2%. Heavy armor allows us to use any type of shield since we do not need to consider armor weight with our setup. So for your shield, you have several options and really depends on your playstyle. For maximum damage, use a round shield with enchanted and keenly empowered perks and either accelerated resolve or fortifying shield rush. For a more counter play style and higher utility, use a kite shield with refreshing move and counterattack in either accelerated resolve or fortifying shield rush. For a hold the door play style, use a tower shield with sturdy fortification and sturdy in either accelerated resolve or fortifying shield rush. Again, these selections are entirely your preference, so I encourage you to try them all out. For the spear, we're using a crafted runewood spear with dexterity, abyssal retaliate gem, enfeebling skewer, abyssal attunement, and keenly jagged. For the butcher artifact, I recommend running trenchant rend to counter heavy armor builds, or trenchant strikes to equip your sword with a strong heavy attack counter when using a kite shield. Over the last couple seasons, I've received many questions regarding which jewelry artifacts could be used with the Spartan build. So, I'll break down each artifact and present to you all the different options available to fine tune your build for a particular playstyle. If you use the Ankh artifact, follow these guidelines for the last perk. To maximize your damage, use Shuriken and Power. If you want to increase your sustain, use Stamina Recovery. And if you want to increase your defense, use either Flame or Thrust Protection and adjust your gems accordingly. If you decide to use another artifact, make sure your necklace has Health and Divine, as these are the core perks for any heavy armor build. If you use the Blood Drinker artifact ring, you will receive 25% lifesteal on any damage that you do with no internal cooldown on the lifesteal. Although the ring's details say it reduces damage by 25%, this is a reduction to your base damage. So if you do a percent difference calculation on your attacks with and without Blood Drinker, your actual damage is only reduced by 16.66%. To maximize damage, I recommend using Invigorated Punishment. This will allow you to throttle all your damage by up to 10% depending on how many buffs your opponent has. However, if your opponent only has a few buffs, then your damage will fall off. If you want to have more consistent damage increase, use thrust damage to buff your sword heavy attacks, leaping strike, skewer, perforate, and your spear basic attacks. To increase your sustain, use keen awareness if you want to increase the frequency of your stamina return and lifesteal more from critical damage. If you decide to use another artifact, make sure your ring has Hardy and Leeching, as these are the core perks for any heavy armor melee build. An easy way to get this ring is to upgrade a champion's ring at the Gypsum Kiln and select whichever perk you want to complete the ring. If you use the Endless Thirst earring to increase your sustain, I recommend using Regenerating. This perk combos very well with a tower shield and a playstyle that prefers to block. To speed up the frequency of your artifact buffs, use Refreshing Toast to reduce the cooldowns of your potions. This will give your build more utility because you will have quicker access to both Empower and Fortify, which will enable you to flex or recover from a burst. If you want to increase your sustain, use Nimble for a faster base stamina regen. This perk combos very well with a playstyle that prefers to dodge often. If you decide to use another artifact, make sure your earring has Healing Toast to heal for 15% of your max HP when consuming a mana pot, and Healing Heart, which will add an additional 10% max HP heal onto your Stone Form heal. Both these perks will help you sustain with either Ankh or Blood Drinker, and simply select any of the 3 perks mentioned above to finish the earring. A recent increase to 55 stamina for the heavy dodge will make energizing rune glass vital for any build that does not have other sources of sustain. For example, if you use Shuriken and Power on your necklace, Invigorated Punishment on your ring, and Regenerating on the earring, the only way of sustaining stamina are the spear passives. So having 5 stamina return on hit every 3 seconds will add up quickly and help you prevent from exhausting your character. However, if you decide to pick up more sustain by having Stamina Recovery on the necklace, Keenly Awareness on the ring, or Nimble on your earring, then you can sustain using Punishing Rune Glass for an extra 5% melee damage. The majority of the damage we receive as melee is from thrust, fire, and elemental damage, and I typically use my stamina to dodge slash and strike damage. Because of this, I run 3 elemental gems, 1 physical gem, and 1 fire gem on my armor. For my jewelry, I run 1 physical gem and 2 thrust gems. This gem combination will give me 6% resist to all elemental damage, 11% resist to fire, 4.5% resist to slash and strike, and 14.5% resist to thrust damage. For my weapon Rune Glass, I use the Abyssal Retaliate gem to give an 8 to 24% damage buff after blocking or taking a hit. This gem pairs nicely with a heavy armor build because we typically are in the middle of the clump or on the front line, so this gem's buff will be constantly up. So for the sword abilities, we're going to start with our leadership tree. We're going to get Achilles Heel, Empowered Stab, Whirling Blade, Opportunity for the 15% rend. Leaping strike all the way down. Critical precision. Confidence. Freeing justice. And then leadership. On the defender tree, we're going to pick up sturdy shield for 15% physical armor. Elemental resistance to reduce all damage from magic by 10%. Defensive training so that when we block, we get 20% fortify. Now, this represents the base foundation for all the different variants of Spartan sword masteries. From here, we can pick up Shield Bash and go all the way down and pick up the recuperation. We could pick up Shield Rush and go all the way down, pick up Final Blow, Intimidating Rush, and then recuperation. Or we can pick up Defender's Resolve, recuperation, and really the last choice is up to you if you want to increase your final light attack damage by 15% or give yourself an extra 10% critical chance by all your abilities. For the spear, we're going to go down skewer all the way to the bottom. The reason we're picking up Deep Wound is because we do not have Bloodletting on our ring. We're then going to pick up Finishing Blows, Aggressive Maneuvers, Exposed Wounds, Exacerbating Crits, All of Perforate, Exploited Weakness, and Unerring Precision. On the Zoner tree, we're going to pick up Deadly Reach, Evasive Maneuvers, Merciless Strength, Cyclone, Invigorating Combo, and Invigorating Crits. And last but not least, we have our Heart Rune. We want to use the Stalwart Heart Rune of Stone Form. This is going to give us a very nice heal and also CC immunity for the duration of the Stone Form. I like using this when I'm in a situation where I have no stamina or I need to just brute my way through a doorway. It's an awesome, awesome Heart Rune to pair with this build, and I highly recommend you use it. Well, everyone, that is the Season 4 Spartan build. I hope this guide can help you decide which way you want to set up your playstyle. I did my best to keep the video short and sweet, and it seems like every time I update this build, it gets better and better. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and check out our community's live stream on Twitch. Thanks for watching, and remember, never stop fighting. Oh! Sacre bleu! Oh! 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 Let's go, dude! Ah! Ah! Oh!